Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. This is Gyi Sakalakis from Attorney Sync, and I made some delicious roast beets recently.
And I am Conrad from Mockingbird Marketing, and I just realized this is the second time Gyi has talked about making roast beets.
Is it?
It is, dude. There's got to be something more interesting than your roast beets. This is the second time.
I'm trying to think of like things I eat at lunch. And
You
it's
are more
like-
interesting than that. Go to
like
ChatGPT and say, "Give me 3 interesting things about myself."
About food, though. Like I was trying to think of food
involve
stuff.
beets. Fuck.
Anyway, this is Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, where we don't just talk about Gyi's beets. We also talk about marketing and law practice. And
Okay.
Conrad, I hear a lot of chatter in the background, which I'm assuming is not just stock B-roll content. You're actually near a bunch of people.
I am at PILMA in Denver. I was really grateful. They moved the conference to Denver so I could get in a day of skiing and see my son, who is finishing off in the middle of final exams of his freshman year at the Colorado School of Mines.
So you went to your son and you're like, forget about studying. Dad's coming in to take you skiing this week.
So we skipped the skiing, but I did take a bunch of starving, over-weary 19-year-old boys out for low-end tacos last night, which was delightful.
A memory they will have forever. What else will we be talking about today, Conrad?
So we have a very quick news segment, and then one of our favorite things to do is answer questions from you guys. We have 2 questions that we're going to answer, and I really, really like both of these. Do we want to give a teaser on the questions?
Go for it.
Should we hold?
Tease away.
Okay. The teaser, we're going to talk about how you should pay your agency to manage your local service ads. Very, very specific. And then we're also going to be talking about in-house marketers. What should they do, and what should you make them keep their hands off?
Money makes the world go round.
Money makes the world go round.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
And we're back. Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. We have a very, very short, although slightly humorous, news segment. Gyi, what hit the New York Times today?
From the New York Times, judge rejects lawsuit with dragon logo, calling it juvenile and impertinent. I don't know if it's been in your feeds. It's been blowing up my feeds. It obviously is blowing up the New York Times. Short version, this lawyer, who is actually from East Lansing, Michigan, and I had to look this up, being a Michigan person, and East Lansing is the home of the Michigan State Spartans. But it doesn't look like this lawyer was actually a Spartan. But what a small world. This is happening right down the road from me. He put a purple dragon logo in a suit in his pleadings that he submitted to the court. Now, Conrad, why would he do this, you think?
Well, if it was me, if I had a law degree, I would do it to create a large news stir and get a whole bunch of links back to my fledgling law firm's website. That's why.
And it is a fledgling law firm. He's new to his firm, just starting out. You talk about an Edward Bernays level PR stunt. Here was my thing, though.
Yeah.
Certainly known. Does this help build trust with the audience, or does it matter? Just be known no matter what.
So, as a fledgling lawyer, getting oneself recognized, people aware of who you are, even if you are the person who is perpetually known as the guy who put a dragon, I mean, it's an innocuous thing. Let me give you a different example. The guy who was anamorphed into the cat, the infamous "I am not a cat, Your Honor," like that was a lesson of incompetence. This might be a lesson of judgment or branding, but I don't think this takes away this doesn't call into question his lawyering, right? Now, is he young?
He's been 17 years. He's been practicing for 17 years.
Oh,
And he said, when asked by the New York Times, he said he would not stop using the dragon. He might be more judicious about displaying it in legal filings, but he says, quote, "I'm not trying to push the envelope," he said. "I'm just trying to run a business."
Okay, so I like him more. Basically, middle finger, I am all in on who I am. We tell you guys this all the time, and if you are getting recognized by the New York Times for being who you are, and that is a way to break through the noise. I mean, I'm at this conference, people are struggling to break through the noise, right? There are marketers scurrying around like cockroaches here.
It's AI, man. It's all AI. You don't need marketers anymore. Just sign up for
I am virtually
AI
in Denver.
marketing.
No,
GPT.
Is there a reputational issue? Like, are judges going to rule against him because he likes dragons? Like, come on.
Well, I think my biggest thing, and I didn't look at the underlying case, and I don't know how all this played out, but there's a client here somewhere, right? Like, you file a lawsuit on behalf of a client, and I don't know that this is great in the client's best interest. Again, maybe I'm overthinking that. Super creative way to get attention, though, and so we called it out. Maybe there are... in fact, you know what? Head over to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing on LinkedIn and tell us what you think when we drop this. We'd love to hear from you about what you think about this dragon lawyer.
I think it is a nothing burger.
Nothing
but
burger.
I've been seeing it all the time. I mean, I'd rather be the dragon lawyer than the I am not a cat lawyer. Let's put it that way.
There you go. All right, what else we got in news?
All right, so the only other thing in the news, we did our very own segment on Google's announcement of how they're expanding or clarifying the already implicit expansion of their use of the recordings of your inbound intake from local service ads. I personally found this highly problematic. They specifically call out information like pricing, etc. We have an entire short episode on that, which we will make sure is in the show notes. If you are a LSA advertiser, please do yourself a favor and spend 6 minutes listening to Gyi and I pontificate about these changes and be very deliberate with how you respond.
Conrad, have you had clients? What has been the sentiment amongst your clients? Yank it? We're out?
It's mixed. We've had clients
same.
cancel LSAs. It's been mixed.
Ours been
I'll
mixed
tell
too.
you this. This is bonkers. We talked to Google support, and I don't know how accurate this or widespread this is, but there are 2 updates that I can share on this. Number 1, they are specifically calling out financial and medical issues as not, this is like a YMYL carve out, as they will not be doing that for those 2. Why legal doesn't fall into that category, I have no clue. Secondly, they told me this, and we have not been able to replicate it, but they told me this, that they literally are adding a whisper message to the beginning of these calls that says, this call is not protected by attorney-client privilege, which seems like a really strange thing for a third-party marketing infrastructure to assert. So problematic to me all around. I hate it.
And if you are watching us on YouTube, please do smash that like button or subscribe. We'd love to keep the conversation going. And so if you have feedback or an opinion about either the new LSA terms or Dragon Lawyer, drop a comment on the video or our channel on YouTube. And in fact, we'll also include, as Conrad mentioned, the link to the episode where Conrad and I discuss these LSA changes.
And as promised, we are covering the first of 2 questions. This one from a good friend of both of ours, Moshe Amsel. Here's the question. Hey, Conrad, I hope you don't mind me using you. You can use me whenever you want, Moshe, but I need help understanding something. I've seen a number of my clients recently starting to get charged by their marketing vendors a percentage of ad spend on LSAs. Now, this makes no sense to me because there isn't much to manage with LSAs, or at least I didn't think there was. Is this justified or onerous? What kind of difference would a managed account get over someone who just turned them on with a budget? Gyi, great question. I'm sure we can expand this, but let me ask you the question. How do you charge people for managing their local service ads?
So it depends, and this is why I take issue with the I take issue with a lot of this stuff, but we shouldn't be measure. To me, the thing in here about all of this is that we shouldn't be judging the fee that we're paying marketers based on time and materials. That's my number one thing. And so when you look
Okay.
at this and they're like, hey, I think you had said there isn't much to manage with LSAs. Isn't much to manage. That might be true. It might be a setup, and guess what? If it's just set it up and let it run, and I'm not reporting, I'm not providing insights, I'm not adjusting locations, I'm not adding videos, I'm not participating in the booking process. I'm not helping you connect the dots between your LSA media and your CRM and call tracking and trying to manage and not manage, but trying to understand things like cost per client and all that kind of stuff. Then yeah, I would say probably percentage of ad spend is not the right fee. It's probably flat fee, and it's probably like one time $500, in my opinion.
Okay.
If it's just a setup. On the other hand, if it's bundled, if it's like it's media management across LSAs, Google Ads, Meta Ads, and a bunch of other stuff, then I'm like, well, guess what? There's a lot going on there. And again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me if it's X minutes doing a thing or Y minutes doing a thing. The value of the marketer service, the value of the expertise is to manage media and manage marketing resource deployment to business metrics. And so if I come to you and I say, hey, I'm going to be able to hit my fee included, whatever that is, and I'm going to get to, I know I'm ranting here, but I don't love percentage of ad spend in general because I think historically my biggest challenge has been lawyers. I would love not to charge you percentage of ad spend because I don't think it aligns. Our interests are misaligned just like your interests with Google are misaligned. You're not paying me to spend more money. You're paying me to hit a business objective. And if I'm doing that, if I can do that in a less amount of time because of my expertise, I'm fine charging for that. But my fee has to be accommodated inside of the target cost per. Like that's the way I think about it.
So you can answer the question. You did a really good thing. You said it depends, and then you went philosophical. So how do you charge for LSAs, Gyi?
I think some of our clients are that we're managing ads for. We're charging a percentage of spend across both LSAs and ads. And then I think that we have I think some of our service where it's like just set it up and that's all they want. I think it's a flat fee, I believe. That could be
Okay.
wrong.
Okay.
Check that.
So, interesting at 1:05, Thomas Glasgow at Pilma is going to be talking about the secrets to getting to the top of local service ads.
So that's
And I
one
was
of the
like-
sessions that I really wanted to see.
Ha! That's the only session. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say this. Let me fix that in post.
Fix it in post. Not
That
Conrad's
is the
session.
That is the
Did
number
you
one
li- did
session
you-
that I want to go to.
Did
because
you attend the Capture Now webinar?
No.
So Thomas Glasgow was on a Capture Now webinar, and again, I don't know how much of a
Okay.
post you want all this stuff,
We'll figure it out.
but it is. I'll tell you, it's funny. Thomas Glasgow, much respect, because he's talking about the same thing that I was saying, which is, get Google paid. Your ads will go. You will spend money on local services ads, but that requires you to do all the things that we talk about, which is, maximizing the number of leads that are being, signaled back to Google based on the number of times they show the ad.
So it's fascinating to me. This was the session at Pilma that I had the most question and most interest in attending because it raised the hair on my neck.
Totally. Let me read you. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason that I think charging a percentage of ad spend with local service ads is crazy is threefold. Number one, the capriciousness with which Google Ads Google local service ads is run makes them very, very difficult to actively manage, right? Turning this dial here and this up there and monitoring that, like it is an ad. If the ad channel was a person, they would have a drug problem and it would be a meth addict. You have no idea what you're going to get.
Have you looked at Google Ads? Have you tried Google Ads before?
Well, it's much better. Google Ads is much better.
Is it? Better how?
Well,
Give me an example.
at a very basic level, I can take out my branded versus my non-branded terms.
You can turn off your brand. You can turn off your brand terms, right?
But not from a reporting perspective. You have no idea how to separate those two things out.
So that I think that's definitely a valid distinction.
So that's one of the reasons I don't like I don't like being paid on a percentage of ad spend, because the reporting that comes back is basically nothing. It's very, very difficult to look at this in any level of detail from Google. So it's really hard.
The best you're gonna do is all in fee spend
that's right.
versus whatever you're paying in fee versus what that's generating for you in new business. And again, to me, it's I don't love the percentage of spend model period, but to me, it's like it's still the same issues in like you have way more control over Google Ads, totally stipulated, right? You way more control in Google Ads. But at the end of the day, it's the same issue. Your goal as the person managing media, if you're paid on percentage of ad spend, whether it's Google Ads or LSAs, is to maximize the spend, because that's what that's where your incentive is. Your incentive is to spend more money.
Oh,
it's the
you're
same as
saying
Google's.
that your problem is that you want to. So okay, let me take that. And
I don't want to do percentage of spend. Period.
Okay, for anything, because you think it encourages agencies to want to maximize the spend. So
I think
let me take that and
yeah, go ahead.
if you riff that into the one of the biggest problems with local service ads, and I talked about the capriciousness, sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. And a big part of figuring out how to run LSAs well, and it's in the title of this talk, is how to show up. How do I show up for these damn things? Which means when you're not showing up and there's zero ad spend is when you want your person working the hardest to get you showing back up. So it's actually an inverse incentive, because we get paid nothing when you need us to work the hardest, which is completely ass backwards. I think
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm always going philosophical. What do you think about percentage of ad spend in general? I mean, again, I've talked about this for years where I'm like, but the industry is telling me no one wants to talk about anything else. Everybody wants to just do, because I'll bring up, here's some other things we could do. And they're like, no, just do percentage of ad spend.
I
mean, how do you guys do? You tell me how you do it.
So with LSAs, it's $350 a month, period.
Okay.
Right? And it is a flat fee because my ability to actually change things is very, very limited, as the questioner points out. And the biggest thing is we need to try and figure out, when it goes away, how do we get it back up? What do we do? And sometimes, like I've thought, sometimes you need to rock the boat. Sometimes you don't want to rock the boat because it's actually working. Like it's so difficult. It's the inputs and outputs are so not aligned that it just doesn't make sense. However, on other ad spends, I think there is although it scales down, which is the way I personally think this should run, a small ad spend requires an amount of marketing. A larger ad spend requires a lot more time and effort from a targeting perspective, from a new creative perspective, from a testing perspective. So it does scale to the size of the spend. However, it does not scale linearly. The way we price pay-per-click specifically, but also our like display campaigns, programmatic display, it is a decreasing percentage of ad spend based on the budget. And I think that's
industry
aligns. Well, I wish it was the industry standard. Most of you guys don't even know and I say that there's two things that are not standardized. Number one is what that percentage is. Some of you guys are paying an arm and a leg, and that is insane. The other way that it is not industry standard is that tiered down level. Like lots of people have a tier of one, which is not a tier.
That's true. I would say that's
I find
true,
that problematic.
Yeah, I think maybe you might be right in like the small section of legal that we live in, but more at writ large, it's very common to do a tiered
Agreed,
percentage.
which is
yeah. And
but-
again,
but
I
so,
still
like-
don't love it. I still don't even love it. I mean, I'm
you
like,
don't love it because you think it's the wrong incentive.
That's right. I would rather, and maybe it's some hybrid where it's like windows of performance, or maybe it's percentage on windows of performance based on hitting some kind of forecast or some kind of target cost per client or volume of clients. But until we get out of this, we make more money when we spend more money. The incentives are misaligned. That's my 2 cents.
I hear you. I think that's why you need to hire a good agency. I hate to sound
Sure,
that simplistic.
of course.
That's why you need to it. Yeah. And by the way, so as the worst agency of all the agencies that controls more money than anyone else, that is exactly what Google has done. They have figured out how to get you guys to spend more, and it's our job to actually turn that back.
Well, it's in my view, it's our job to hit target goal objective goals. That's
Sure.
what get aligned on new client goals, get aligned on target cost per goals by channel, blended, however you want to segment, referral, non-referral, brand, non-brand. But once you have those in place, that's what you're paying for the expertise for. Because otherwise, to Moshe's point, I can set it up myself. I mean, here you can go online and set it up yourself. You don't need anybody to do it.
Unless you want it to work financially.
But see, now you're contradicting, because I'm saying the value is in that delivering on that objective.
I agree. Yeah.
And so that's why I don't measure things in terms of that's why I don't like measuring in terms of activity. There's not a lot to do, so therefore the fee that you're generating is not that much. It should be based on how much time you actually, how many optimizations you make to my campaign per month. Come on.
That's silly.
That's the thinking, though. It's a time and materials thinking, because it comes from a lot of firms that are in the hourly stuff mindset. That's how they think about it, right? But to me, it goes back to that same thing. Person comes to your house, fixes your squeaky floor, do it in a second. You didn't know how to do it. You're going to charge that person for the second that it took them to figure out how to do it, or that they actually solve the problem, and that the solution to that problem has a certain amount of value to your business. We have a great question from Hunter Garnett on LinkedIn. And by the way, Conrad, did I mispronounce his last name? Is it Garnett or Garnett?
I believe it is the latter.
Okay. Thank you, Hunter,
and if
for
we're
being
wrong, he is 2 feet taller than both of us, so
I know.
he'll clunk us in the
head.
I
know.
And he wears cowboy boots.
But thank you for your attention to your contribution and attention to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. And again, for other listeners that have got these questions, head over to LinkedIn and drop the questions. Here's Hunter's question. For lawyers who want to have an in-house marketing team, which digital marketing channels are best left to the quote-unquote expert vendors? For example, LSAs and organic socials seem to be logical channels to trust to an in-house team. Conrad, lead us off.
LSA, so sorry, can you repeat that? LSAs and what was his other channel?
He says LSAs and organic socials seem to be no-brainers to trust to your in-house folks.
Okay, I like this. So organic social, I think one of the things that we need to think about what we really mean here is on organic social, that is what you and I have talked about as dark social, heavy community engagement, amplified through the use of social media, being close to a firm so you can learn and use the firm's voice and speak in the firm's voice, connect with people who are appropriate in the community. That is a classic in-house opportunity. LSAs, do you, again, we just talked about how hard it is to actually proactively manage those things. I'll tell you this, the job I do not want to have ever is the in-house marketer who is in charge and held accountable for the performance of local service ads. I don't want that job ever. Totally. And then you have the things, I think, specifically, and this is extreme, this has gotten extremely worse. I think you and I both used to live on the side of, hey, you know what? Go watch a bunch of YouTube videos and you will be able to figure out, in general, how to run pay-per-click campaigns cost effectively. I think that at this point in time, from a pure statistics perspective, we don't have that. it's very, very difficult to run pay-per-click as a silo and understand the best way to set this up, to run it, to have enough data to actually work with. That to me is, I would 100% lean heavily into the expertise of somebody else. What do you think, Gyi, about, we talked about a little bit about dark social and content. What do you think about content on the SEO side? Is that something you put in-house, or do you like that external?
Well, I totally dodged Hunter's question here, and I'll tell you what I wrote.
Great.
I
Good job.
shrug emoji first.
One lawyer and one MBA, and you dodged the question.
But this is what I said. It's less about channels and more about the expertise. It's not really about the channel to me.
Okay.
I think of the experts as filling in the gaps. In fact, I thought I was being super cute. I called it marketing pro hoc vice, which is a legal term of art. I also acknowledge it's probably not a perfect analogy, but what are the gaps in expertise of the in-house team? What are the blind spots of the in-house team? And I've got to give a shout to our friend Michael Mogul, who put together a compilation episode on the Game Changing Attorney podcast, which you and I were a guest on. And I would encourage, we'll put a link to that in there as well, because I think there's still a lot of nuggets in there that maybe people aren't using. But one of the things
like being on a podcast that includes Seth Godin. Gyi, I didn't think
right?
that was on my bingo card this year.
I love seeing that little picture of us next to all those important people. I was like, wow. I was like, thank you.
Me too.
Thank
By the way,
you.
Seth Godin in that clip is wearing an orange vest. I think we're going to try and recruit him over to
there you are,
team.
copying. You're following what all the lawyers are doing. Copy what the experts are doing. But we talked about, Michael asked us this question about in-house, outsourcing and this stuff. And go listen to the conversation. But this made me think of that. This is where the hybrid model really thrives, because forgetting about channel, number one, building an in-house team, and I think that you were alluding to this, building an in-house team that can manage LSAs, do organic social, do pay-per-click, do SEO, do all the other local event marketing, blah, blah, blah. That's a heck of a team. That is not a unicorn person, in my opinion. That is a team of people. And your team is going to be deep and shallow on varieties of types of things that you're going to do. And that's why I say bring the experts in for support on those things. And so again, even if you might have an in-house PPC person. Great. You're probably going to benefit from the data and the experience of an expert partner. You might have, you asked me about the SEO question. I've been writing up and down about this. You want to live in the future, an AI content generated future, you better find a way to stand out with original expertise, original content, original insight and analysis in your content. And I believe that, and all the stuff we talk about in the quote unquote authorship stuff, the who published it, who wrote it, their byline, their expertise stuff, that by definition requires in-house participation, in my opinion. Now that though, plus an outside partner, that's where I see the magic happening. It's the pairing of the in-house functions with the expertise and with the technology. That's who it seems to be is putting out the best stuff that I can see so far.
Wow, interesting. Almost some foreshadowing of an upcoming announcement later on in this pod. Gyi, part of my answer to this question, I'm going to use a little alliteration. I think it is important to have the managerial function of intake and infrastructure in-house. And what I mean by that is we're looking for someone who is responsible for making calls, hiring, firing, and improving the overall process, not just of the marketing, but after that lead, that phone call, that form fill text chat comes in. So this is someone who's going to be elbows deep in a Lawmatics or a lead docket. It's going to be someone who's listening in proactively and coaching intake staff. It's going to be someone who worries about those marketing metrics that you and I talk about all the time. That person That power. I need a better word than power, but it's responsibility,
Authority.
power, control,
Authority.
whatever it might be.
Influence.
Influence. I think that person, that role, that person who has that level of influence is often a missing link in kind of the growing firm. Do I have a fractional COO? Do we have a CMO? Do we have the head of the intake? Like, it seems like a transitional point where the firm is like, I'm going to get someone who's not managing partner, who's not the president or the CEO or the primary driver of running the business, but someone who is functioning, who has the authority to make those calls and who's held to account and will hold people to account for why things didn't happen and why these metrics aren't working. That has to be an internal position.
100% with you. But a lot of those things you named, you're not saying that this person sets up Lawmatics or configures Lawmatics or configures HubSpot or drops the technology code to do phone tracking for intake or, a bunch of other tasks that are involved in those functions. This is a person that is we just had the NFL draft and we kind of joked around about doing an NFL draft episode and we decided not to. But let's talk through that lens. Is this the GM? Is this the quarterback? Is this the coach? What role is this person? What position is this person on the team?
We need a football
Sounds like a GM
analogy.
almost. Well, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It's whatever. I'm trying to.
Well, it was interesting when we kind of had this draft theory. Gyi and I looked through the speaker list at Pilma, and there were two people that we picked out. And Gyi, I didn't share who the other person was.
You didn't, which is exciting for me.
Which is exciting. There were two people that we pulled out as if we were running a draft of the people at Pilma who we would want on our team in a law firm. We picked Cassidy Lewis and Mickey Love, right? And there's a reason for that. Both of those people have A, been around for a very, very long time, and B, have authority and responsibility to make things happen and make things better. And that's the role that I think is so frequently missed. It's why EOS became so popual, right?
Well, that's what I was gonna speak through EOS terminology.
Go. And I think it's a mistake. I think that EOS terminology is a mistake, but go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say a lot of these firms are missing the head of the growth function, right? So if you're in the accountability chart, their base accountability chart for EOS is sales and marketing function, operations, finance, right? You've got the visionary and the integrator, but let's put those aside for a second. The growth, the head of growth, and I also, we could do a whole segment on this. It's growth, not sales and marketing as separate functions. It's the head of growth. That role, who is a leadership team level role, call it a CMO, call it a CRO, whatever you want to call it. I'm not really big on titles, but it's the person who's the ultimate point of accountability for growth, both from the marketing side of the house in terms of generating demand and capturing demand and doing intake and working people through from initial contact all the way through to client and beyond in terms of nurturing. That's that person who's like, I'm setting I'm leading this function. That's what it seems to be missing. It's that leadership role.
So, and the reason I think one of the mistakes that we're currently starting to see in the legal world is I'm going to bring on an EOS integrator to fill that job. I think that's a mistake. And that's why you and I both picked Mickey and Cassidy, because of the depth of experience. I mean, it is years, decades in some cases, working within a law firm and moving accountability and making things happen. And the third-party EOS integrator, who may be the best EOS integrator in the world, who doesn't know about things like how to answer the phone with empathy, right? I think that's a miss. I think we're trying to slot that Tetris piece into a place where it doesn't really belong. Now that I've made unfriends with a bunch of EOS integrators, I think we need to be careful of that. But it's interesting that we both picked that accountability role as to me, a key missing link that once solved really, really makes things change.
Well, and I'll tell you, the reason I did is because we see a lot of firms that have in-house doers, but not an in-house, if you want to use a different outside of sports, like a conductor of the symphony. We got a lot of people playing instruments, but we don't have someone who's conducting the symphony. And I think that's the kind of the way that I thought of that.
All right, Gyi, with that, we promised, we teased, we suggested that some news might be dropping at the end of this episode. What do you want to share? What do you want to go get people to go? We were just talking about in-house marketing people. You want to share anything?
We are doing a conference because the world needs another conference, right, Conrad?
We needed
the world
more
needs another
legal conferences. Oh my good Lord.
We need another legal marketing conference, but this time, two things that we hope are at least part of the uniqueness of this conference. One, we want to hear from you. We're going to crowdsource the content. And so we're going to set up a way for you to submit ideas, speakers, topics. What do you want this conference to be about? And we're going to direct people to go to two main places. One's going to be the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing social channels, especially LinkedIn, maybe YouTube. And we'll also create a dedicated form if you want to do anonymous or you want to do it in a different way. We'll give you a form you can fill out. We want to hear from you. But the audience for this conference is in-house legal marketers. It is these, we want to hear from these in-house CMOs. We even want to hear from the marketing directors, and we want to hear from the doers too. We want to build a conference for those in-house marketing teams, and we think that that's something that would be tremendously valuable to a lot of firms. And if you don't think so, we want to hear that too.
Gyi, are we going to let lawyers come to this conference?
Oh, well, we're still trying to decide whether the marketers are allowed to bring a lawyer or not.
Bring a lawyer. It's a 2-for-1. It's a BOGO.
I'll tell you, if you're a lawyer out there and you try to sign up and you don't have a marketer with you, you're not coming. So we'll put it that way.
Wow. All right. I like that. So September 22 to September 24 in Las Vegas, 3 days of really tactical, great, and crowdsourced content, specifically for the in-house marketers. So it was a great question from Hunter. It enabled us to seamlessly parlay a question into self-promotional marketing.
For in-house marketers, by in-house marketers. We'll see you in Vegas. Until next time, Conrad and Gyi for Lunch Hour Legal Marketing saying farewell.
Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.